Henri Barkey is a director of the Wilson Center's Middle East program, and he joins us today to talk about the recent election in Turkey. An election day here in the United States, coincidentally as well. So the second election in Turkey in 6 months, and a bit of a gamble for the ruling party. They have to be happy with the result.
Oh, they must be. They are very happy with the results. I mean, it was a very convincing win. It was a win that nobody expected. Most pollsters actually showed that there would be another hung parliament with no party winning a majority. And in fact, the ruling party increased its percentage by 8 points. So that's actually, it's a huge victory.
So you would go along with this characterization of this as a surprise. There was no way to see exactly what was coming.
Yes. Yes. Even the people who predicted, there was only one pollster in the whole country that predicted the direction of the electorate, but even he came short.
So President Erdogan pushed this stability narrative. It seemed to catch on.
Well, it caught on because, in a way, what happened was, which was very unfortunate, is that the Kurdish Workers' Party, which is the main insurgent group in Turkey, decided to give up the unilateral ceasefire it had announced 2 years ago and kind of went on the offensive. And it was really a gift that they gave to Erdogan. I think it was the biggest strategic blunder I've seen in politics in a long, long time. And so they essentially allowed Erdogan to write a narrative for the election of stability and saying, look, you didn't vote for stability last time, look what happened. And in fact, that's what happened. People voted for stability.
Is that a fatal blow for that party?
Well, the PKK is not a party. It's an insurgent group.
Or the insurgent, yeah.
No, because they are actually quite powerful. They are based mostly in northern Iraq and eastern and western Turkey. Eastern southeastern Turkey, but they have a large constituency. They're very powerful. No, they're not. But it is a major defeat for them politically.
Yeah, weakens them a bit. So, what about are the results tainted in your view? This campaign was unfair and characterized by too much violence and fear. That's Andreas Gross, the Swiss head of mission, one of the election observers.
Well, there's no question that the election was unfair because you had the government using all of the resources of the state to go to campaign, plus something like 70 to 80% of the Turkish press is now controlled by either the Turkish state or people who are associated to Erdogan, his family, his business partners, his friends. So you did not get a fair airing of ideas, and if you looked at the Turkish papers on a daily basis, that most of them only had Erdogan and the Prime Minister Davutoglu on their cover. They never bothered, or if they had the opposition, it would be a tiny little picture. But the other thing I would say is that when you look at the state media, which is supposed to be completely fair, the ruling party got in some cases 50 times more airtime than the Kurdish party, for instance. So in that sense, it was definitely unfair.
Erdogan, in the last 24 hours, has called for the world to respect the results. Will the world respect the results?
Well, people will respect. I mean, will respect the results. I mean, there's no question that there was not that much cheating. I mean, there may have been cheating on the margins, but by and large, this was a relative clean election, except for, well, as I said, the setup for the election was unfair because you really did not get to Erdogan. And people will recognize it. I mean, this is a legitimate and legal government in Turkey, and everybody will recognize it. Whether or not they will like it is another matter.
So what are the immediate implications? What are some of the priorities that now the ruling party will be able to act on?
Well, domestically in Turkey, what you will see is probably greater repression, in the sense of, by repression I mean going after dissenters. For example, 3 days before the elections, the state took over 2 opposition newspapers and 2 opposition television networks on very flimsy evidence. There was actually no evidence. In fact, they couldn't find anything, but they still said, well, there must be something, but we'll take it over. They fired everybody, and they put their own people, and those became essentially pro-Erdogan. And then today, for instance, they've arrested more journalists. So that repression is going to increase. It's going to be more, shall we say, kind of a one-party state-like feeling to it. Internationally, it's going to be interesting. Internationally, the most important issue that's facing Turkey is what happens in Syria. And it remains to be seen whether or not in Syria the Turks are going to become more self-confident and try to hamper some of the American initiatives in Syria. Because in Syria, the United States and Turkey are on the same side, except the priorities are different. For Erdogan and the Turks, the most important priority is to get rid of Assad and also curtail any advances made by Syrian Kurdish groups. Whereas for the United States, the most important priority, the strategic priority, has become ISIS. Mm-hmm. And the United States has gotten permission to use 4 bases in Turkey to fight ISIS. But the United States is allied now with the Syrian Kurds, and that alliance is something that the Turks really do not like and would like to see it end. So that's where there's going to be friction.
Can the president and the prime minister continue to work together? Or are we headed for some sort of showdown in that regard?
It's an interesting question. I mean, in reality, in Turkey, power rests with the prime minister, except that Erdogan has usurped that power because he's very popular, because he controls the party. Even though he's supposed to be above all party, he's not supposed to be partisan. He basically has run as the Justice and Development Party. I mean, he has been a partisan president. He wants to become an executive president. He wants to change the constitution. He wants to change Turkey from a parliamentary system to a presidential system, maybe like the French one, where you have a president and a prime minister, but the prime minister really is very, very subservient to the president.
Does he have the votes to do that?
He does not have the votes in parliament to do that, but just like you saw in the elections, this is a very wily politician who's going to figure out a way to do it. He needs, I would say, he needs another 13 votes in parliament to have a referendum on the presidential system. And that's what he will try to get now in the next weeks, months, to kind of get a constellation of parliamentarians to vote. But the prime minister would be a loser if the country goes into a presidential system. But I don't think he has a choice. Mm-hmm. He doesn't exist without the president.
One final thought, Henri, is the long-term implications. You talked about how we will immediately see a move toward even more repression. Already the press is pretty much dominated. What are the long-term trends, say, for Turkey? What are the long-term implications?
Look, you can be magnanimous in victory and reach out to your opponents and try to resolve some of the issues. The Kurdish issue is the most important. There are economic issues that they have to. This party did very well initially on economic issues, mm-hmm. but has kind of not done so well in the last few years, partially because of the world economic situation. But if it goes about and alienates people and polarizes, because there's a great deal of polarization, then this is a country that's going to have a great deal of civil strife, demonstrations, protests, and you will see the government becoming more and more heavy-handed, to put it mildly, in the process. And that is not good for the country. So it's a question of, is Erdogan going to say, okay, look, I won decisively, I can do whatever I want, but there are also, I need to rule the whole country. I need to be the president of everybody and not just 49%. And it remains to be seen. I don't know. Look, in the past, there's been a lot of hubris, and hubris dictated policy. Maybe the fact that in June they lost the elections was a lesson, and they will therefore from now on act differently. But the jury is out. We'll see.
Well, and we'll invite you back as we find out, as things progress. Thanks, Henri.
Thank you.